Holy shit. What a week. And we still have 3 games to play. The entire AFC playoff picture is going to be shaken up as a result of this week, and it's crazy. What happened this week is absolutely crazy. So, first of all, the Steelers, as you can see, lost to the Patriots 21-18. The Steelers made history. They're still above 500, but they're the first team to be above 500 and lose to 2 teams that were 8 or more games below 500. Patriots came into this game at 210. In the game against the Cardinals last week, the Cardinals came into that game 210, and the Steelers lost both games. That's like making NFL history in the worst way possible. Texans Jets we're going to come back to. Ravens beat the Rams in OT 37-31. Saints beat the Panthers 28-6 to no one's surprise. Bengals beat the Colts 34-14. Falcons lost to the Buccaneers 25-29. Browns beat the Jaguars 31-27. Bears beat the Jaguars, I meant. Browns beat the Jaguars because the Bears beat the Lions 28-13. Seahawks got swept by the 49ers. They lost them 28-16. The Vikings beat the Raiders 3-0. 24-7 victory for the Broncos over the Chargers and 2017 victory for the Bills over the Chiefs. We still have Eagles, Cowboys, Packers, Giants, and Titans, Dolphins, and all 3 of these games are going to have some kind of a playoff implication. And once those games conclude, I can actually start to predict who's going to make the playoffs more accurately and who's not. I just want to wait for these games to play out so I can predict who it's going to be. I know Tom Grassi did it with 5 weeks left. I'd rather wait until there's only 4 weeks left. That's just me. But, I mean, yeah. And looking at this Texans-Jets game, scoreless first half. I live in the New York metro area, so I can attest to this. It was a very rainy day. We had hot, heavy rain over an inch where I live, but only about a third of an inch or so in Central Park. Rain is going to be coming down heavier, and that's a reason why they struggled in the first half. But then the rain died down before the winds picked up, and the Jets' offense was able to explode. This is a very critical win for the Jets. They pretty much have no playoff chances, but it keeps their very faint playoff hopes alive, and they still have a chance of maybe at the very least having their first season since 2015 when they don't have a losing record. And if they can do that, and in a very unlikely event that Aaron Rodgers is actually able to stay healthy, we could very easily see the Jets make it to the playoffs next year. Because honestly, Zach Wilson for once actually had a good game, and for the Texans, this is a costly loss. Looking at the Vikings Raiders, this was a game that I honestly thought could go 0-0. But the Vikings finally made a field goal at the very end of the game. But if you look at the scoring summary, literally that was the only score. So they went to the 2-minute warning scoreless. It was one of the worst games in NFL history. I don't think it was the total worst game of the week, because honestly, it was a horrible game. I feel like the Jets-Texans was slightly worse just on the basis of how you had a scoreless game at first, and then the Jets just exploded. But I feel like the Vikings Raiders at least had that somewhat competitive sense into it, as in like who would be able to get the field goal, get the win. Whereas the Jets Texans, once it stopped being scoreless, it pretty quickly became uninteresting as the Jets just ran away with the lead. But this is going to have a traumatic impact on the NFL standings. So we have the Dolphins at 9-3. They're going to be taking on the Titans next week for the lead in the AFC East. But again, it's taking on the Dolphins. Bills are 7-6. Jets are 5-8. Patriots are 3-10. Patriots were also eliminated from the playoffs despite winning this week. Also, everyone in the AFC East has won this week so far. Of course, this is somewhat misleading because if the Titans beat the Dolphins, although I don't foresee that happening, and you'll see why in a little bit. Obviously, Dolphins are going to lose, and that'll be a very costly loss. Meanwhile, the Chiefs now at 8-5, Broncos at 7-6, so they're within striking distance of the Chiefs. Chargers and Raiders are both 5-8. And they both lost. And the Chiefs, you can see the Chiefs are on a losing streak. The Broncos are the only team to have actually won this week. Chiefs, I'm telling you, that team is falling apart. In the game against the Bills, I watched it. The refs were definitely not on the Chiefs' side, and I was surprised. I mean, Taylor Swift was there. The refs have been known to help out the Chiefs before. The Super Bowl maybe, which pisses me off still. You also have their game against the Jets, where you had the AFC Championship against the Bengals. To some extent, the divisional round against the Jaguars, also they had some referee help. So, just to see the Chiefs have the refs not on their side. Patrick Mahomes was yelling at the refs at the end. I mean, I saw a potential touchdown that where Travis Kelce just won it and Taylor Swift was cheering, and then it was ruled to be a penalty and the touchdown invalidated. I will say Mahomes should have won for a field goal on the 4th and 15, even though he was at the 50-yard line. He chose not to. He chose to go for it, and that's how and that's just kind of how the Bills, just won the game. In the North, Ravens are 10-3, Browns are 8-5, Steelers 7-6, Bengals 7-6. They're all on winning records, as of right now. And everyone in the AFC South is on a losing streak. Jaguars fall to 8-5, Colts fall to 7-6, Texans fall to 7-6, Titans are 4-8, but again, somewhat misleading because they could beat the Dolphins. Although I see that being unlikely. In the NFC, Eagles, Cowboys, 10-2 for the Eagles, 9-3 for the Cowboys. Obviously, the game is going to matter heavily. And in the somewhat likely occurrence that the Cowboys win, I will, number one, be humiliated at school tomorrow. Especially if the Giants then win Monday night. And the Cowboys also temporarily have the lead. Although if we both win out, the Eagles do win just based on the complicated nature of the tiebreakers. But we really do need to win this game. Just because, let's say that we both lose one, if the Eagles aren't careful about who they lose to, that could very easily lead to the Cowboys, winning it. So it could be that both teams lose, and then the control of the destiny would fall to the Cowboys. In particular, the Eagles have 2 games against the Giants, and those are must-win games because of the conference, because of the division record. If the Eagles can secure the division record, they still need to be careful, though, because all their games are going to be games within the conference, whereas the Cowboys do have an out-of-conference game as of this point against the Miami Dolphins. So they actually have at least one. Just gonna double check. 2, because they have to play the Bills. So Cowboys, they don't have that same nature where they can lose games, and it would not really have much of an impact on tiebreakers per se. Anyway, Giants are 4-8, but again, that 2-win streak is misleading because they could very well lose to the Packers. Commanders are 4-9. In the West, the 49ers are 10-3, Rams and Seahawks are 6-3, Cardinals are 3-10. Cardinals are on a bye this week. There are actually a few teams that are on a bye this week. Lions fell to 9-4. Vikings rose to 7-6. Packers are 6-6. And again, that I'm telling you, that game, Monday Night Football, it's going to be huge. And the Bears actually rose to 5-8. In the South, you have the Buccaneers, Falcons, and Saints at 6-7. So it's going to be a very complicated tiebreaker. Panthers are 1-12. And honestly, the NFC South is going to be a 3-way race between the Buccaneers, Falcons, and Saints. And realistically, whoever doesn't win the NFC East, so either the Eagles or the Cowboys, are going to face against them away. And it's probably going to be a win. It's probably going to be exceptionally similar to what happened in the, in the wild card round last year, where the loser of the NFC East is pretty much guaranteed to make it to the divisional round, unless a stunning upset happens, or one of these teams just goes on a run and they don't really have very easy schedules. Not that I'm exactly looking for that, as of right now. I mean, it was a stunning week, and now we can just look at, I know I'm on computer, but now we can just look at the playoff standings of this and look at it. Baltimore Ravens now have the lead at 10-3. Looking at the conference records, they're 6-3. But if Miami loses, they're falling down to 6-3 as well. Wait, no. If Miami loses, they're 9-4 and are still in second place. If they win, the conference record would go 7-2, and they would take the lead over the Ravens. They would have control of the AFC. Keep in mind, Ravens and Dolphins do play head to head towards the end of the season, and so it's not going to be a conference record tiebreaker in the end. It's going to be whoever wins that game, unless that game ends in a tie, which we have still not seen at all this season. Chiefs and Jaguars are 8-5. I know that this wasn't updated yet, but the reason why the Chiefs would have the tiebreaker is because they beat the Jaguars in week 2. Also, just want to say for the record that Chiefs have a tiebreaker over the Dolphins, but it's not going to matter if the Chiefs keep playing the way that they are. I mean, they still have not clinched a winning record. And in their last 6 games, they've gone 2-4. Browns are now in a wild card spot, 8-5. And I just want to point out that in case the Browns make it to the playoffs, and the Jaguars wind up not winning a division, although the Colts and Texans are both out of a playoff spot, but they're only one game out. In the case the Jaguars don't win the division, the Browns now have head-to-head tiebreak over them. So I just want to make sure that was stated. Steelers are 7-6, so are the Bengals, but head-to-head victory is why Steelers will beat the Bengals in a tiebreaker. And the Bengals will also beat the Colts based on head-to-head victory. And common record is how the Steelers will win beat the Colts. Now the Colts have the tiebreaker over Houston based on a head-to-head victory, and that's how the Texans are demoted so far down. Now, this isn't exactly accurate because the Broncos lost to the Texans 7-6, and they would be ahead of the Bills because they did beat the Bills, and they're 7-6. And this is just crazy, honestly. Chargers and Raiders are 5-8, but the Chargers, I think, got the head-to-head victory, and the Jets are also 5-8, but they lost to both the Raiders and the Chargers. Titans are 4-8, but if they go to 5-8, then they'd be at 3-6 conference record over the Jets. I think it'll go to either strength of victory or strength of schedule, and Jets would win either way. They have a stronger strength of schedule and strength of victory. And Patriots 3-10, they're eliminated. In the NFC, Eagles are 10-2, 49ers are 10-3. Lions are 9-4, Buccaneers are 6-7. And the Buccaneers in the area is complicated, but I just want to say for the Eagles, first of all, 49ers have head-to-head tiebreaker, so if the Eagles lose, they also lose control of their own destiny for the 1 seed, because if they tie, 49ers are going to get it over the Eagles. And when you look at division records, Eagles are 3-0, but they'll fall to 3-1 if they lose. Cowboys are 3-1, they'll rise to 4-1 if they win. That's how Cowboys will take control of the division. But then, because the Cowboys only have 1 division game left and the Eagles have 2 division games left, they'll both be 5-1 when you look at conference record. If they win out, Eagles can go up to 11 and could go up to 10-2. Cowboys are going to be limited to 9-3. That's pretty much the very complicated scenario as far as the Eagles. And I mean, there is some hope for the Eagles in the sense that the Cowboys have not beaten a good team this year. But the fact that they came so close to beating the Eagles in Philadelphia, they've only played 2 good teams this year. They have a very long winning streak at home, and the fact that the Cowboys beat the Eagles at home the last 5 times they played them, it's really hard to see it. Although I will say last year Jalen Hurts was injured, so that makes a difference. So that's the Cowboys, and they're 9-3 right now. Vikings are 7-6. Packers are 6-6. There's a big manhunt at 6-7 with the Rams breaking a tie over Atlanta on conference records. Seattle and New Orleans are eliminated based on their division records because, the Rams swept the Seahawks. But the Seahawks are ahead of the Falcons based on conference record. So Tampa Bay and the Falcons would both beat the Saints on head-to-head record. But common record is how the Buccaneers beat the Falcons. It's just so complicated. They have head-to-head victory over the Saints. But the Seahawks have the conference record over the Falcons. it's just confusing. The Bears are 5-8. The Giants are 4-8. Commanders are 4-9. Cardinals are 3-10, and the eliminated Panthers, they're 1-12. Also, in the case that the Giants lose, they'll still be ahead of the Commanders because of their head-to-head sweep over them. Should they beat the Bears, the Bears have a 4-5 conference record. The Giants can only go up to 3-5. So in that case, the Bears will still remain ahead of the Giants, even if the Giants improve to 5-8. Also, the Vikings, even the Packers win, they'll still be behind the Vikings because the Vikings have head-to-head victory over them. But that also reminds me, as you can see, there are several ties right now that are broken just based off of one game. Now, in the case of Steelers versus Browns, they split the series. It's going to go down to conference record for that one. As far as Steelers versus Bengals, should that tiebreaker need to occur, they are playing Week 16 in Saturday afternoon football because they'll be after college football, so they'll legally be allowed to do that. The Steelers beat the Bengals the first time around, but of course, the Bengals could win and then throw it to a conference record and all that minutia. Because I don't think it's guaranteed yet that the Steelers are going to have a better division record than them. Looking at it, the Steelers are 3-1 and the Bengals are 0-4. Never mind. Never mind. It is guaranteed that the Steelers are going to have a better record because so far the Bengals have not been able to win a single division game. Steelers, they've won 3, so it's guaranteed. Steelers will have tiebreak over the Bengals. I did not expect that to happen. But as far as the Browns go, they're 3-2, so that could pretty much go either way at this point. They could beat the Steelers, and they, so I'm just saying that that's not set in stone yet. Now, as far as the Colts versus Texans, they're playing Week 18, but so far the Colts have the edge over the Texans. And just going back to the division records, for them, Texans are 1-2, Colts are 3-2, but it's not out of the question for the Texans to beat the Colts. It's just unlikely. I'll have to face my friends back later. And again, now that you actually have all this, it's just like so complicated scenarios. Conference record, Broncos beat Bengals, and then but Texans would beat all 3 of them, and then you have the Colts who would beat all of them. It's a mess. It's a mess. In the NFC though, this big conglomeration is at 6-7. In the AFC, it's at 7-6. That's, I think, the big difference between the conferences. Chargers, Raiders, and this is what I said about the Jets. Both of these teams will win. But as far as Chargers versus Raiders, as far as that's gone, they're playing next week. This is a must-win for the Raiders. A must-win for the LA Raiders. And they both also have 1-2 conference records. And now in the NFC South, you have a lot of fun. Buccaneers versus Falcons. They won. Can I please have all the games that they played? As far as the Falcons go, do they play the Buccaneers again? No, they play the Saints again in week 18. They don't play the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers beat them, but the Falcons beat them the first time around, so it will be thrown to division record. That it's going to be thrown to a division record tiebreak. Buccaneers are 3-1. Falcons are 3-1. So again, could go either way. As far as Falcons versus Saints. Falcons beat the Saints the first time around, but they're playing again in Week 18. Saints have a 2-2 division record. And finally, Buccaneers versus Saints. Buccaneers won the first time. The Saints have a chance to rematch them on New Year's Eve. And they're 2-2 again with their records. It's such a nightmare as to who's going to win. That there's just so much going on. And in Vikings Packers, you have Vikings 2-1 conference record, Packers 2-2, and University record. It's so confusing. And honestly, this is going to be a year where like so many teams are going to be in it because like just look at it. As of now, in the AFC, with all but one team playing, and the teams that haven't played in the AFC don't even matter. You have 4 teams who don't make the playoffs based on tiebreakers. You have 6 teams at 7-6. So you have, and then you have 2 more teams that are within 2 games. So when you factor about tiebreakers, of course, because they would lose on those, it's so competitive. You have 3 teams who you have 3 teams. You literally have in week 14 you have, oh my god, you have 14 teams that are in the playoffs or within 2 games, and you have 11 teams who are in a playoff position, but then you factor out tiebreakers, and this is why tiebreakers are so important in the NFL. In the NFC, you look at it, Packers. I don't know if the Packers. I think the Packers beat the Saints, but lost to the Falcons. I think that if they lose, I think that they fall out of a playoff position. Because then they're constantly going on 4-4, but I think it might go to the Rams have a strong schedule, focusing the victory. Honestly, I don't know. It could say the Packers. It could go to the Rams. I don't know what's going to happen to the playoff positions if the Packers lose. To be honest, if they win, then they stay the same. Just that the Vikings would have a tiebreak over them. If they lose, I don't know what happens exactly. So either way, that's TBD. Now, if the Packers lose, Giants would be within 1 game of a playoff position. 1 game. But if the Packers beat the Giants will be 3 games out of it. Also, if the Packers lose and 6-7 is literally the cutoff to make it to the playoffs, which I know is very sad, Commanders would also fall within 2 games, and you have 14 teams who are within 2 games when you don't factor in the tiebreaker. Now, as far as that, if the Packers win and 7-6 is the cutoff, you'd still have 12 teams. So, and there wouldn't be any teams that are like on a border if it's 7-6. If it's 6-7, again, you'd have like 4 teams on that tiebreaker bubble. It's crazy.